Hi guys, we were told by experts that Brexit would have a long-lasting impact on the UK economy, and while both the Conservatives and Labour want to avoid talking about Brexit and the damage it's inflicting, there is no escaping that reality. While the pandemic did hide many of the worst aspects of leaving the single market and the EU, the fallout from that is certainly in the rear-view mirror, and now Brexit is clearly exerting itself. Those are not my words, but those of Greene from the Kroll Institute, a leader of independent risk and financial advisory solutions based in New York. Here she spoke to BBC Radio 4 about the difficult challenges facing post-Brexit Britain.
2 weeks ago, the UK looked completely uninvestable for investors. And I think, investors are still wary because there's so much uncertainty. Boris Johnson pulling out gives us more certainty. It seems like Rishi Sunak will be the next prime minister. But even then, the UK has a really tough line to walk because on the one hand, it can't provide these budgets that are fiscally irresponsible or that seem fiscally irresponsible. We see what happens with the markets then. But equally, Rishi Sunak is going to come and probably announce quite a lot of austerity. And he can't go too far on that end either, because then the markets will look at that and think, well, the UK is never going to grow. It's already got 10% inflation. It's facing Brexit headwinds. The winter is going to be tough. And so even without all the political drama, the economic environment in the UK is incredibly difficult. And so the government can't spend too much, but it also can't retrench too much, because either way, investors will think that the UK's fiscal situation is unsustainable.
Do investors want to invest in the UK right now?
So look, the bond markets have largely recovered from the mini budget drama. And so that suggests that investors are more interested in fixed income in the UK. That's thanks to the Bank of England, though, not thanks to the government. The Bank of England stepped in and restored market functioning. When it comes to the currency, though, the pound is still pretty weak. Even, the Liz Truss stepping down and Kwasi Kwarteng being fired, that hasn't actually caused the pound to appreciate. And so I do think investors are still wary, not just because of the political drama, but again, because of all the other challenges. I mean, if you look at energy, for example, the UK's energy costs have risen more than those in the Eurozone, while the UK isn't at all reliant on Russia for energy. There's been a lot of economic mismanagement. Yeah, it's mostly to do with regulatory issues and consolidation among small companies in the energy industry. So it's just one of many examples of sort of economic mismanagement. Brexit is really asserting itself now that the pandemic is more in the rearview mirror than it had been. And these are all challenges that the UK government's going to have to deal with, whoever is in charge.
What's interesting here is that she talked about how the Bank of England is propping up the bond market, not actual policy from Westminster, which is very concerning, because as soon as the Bank of England withdraw its support, then what's going to happen? But the elephant in the room here, of course, is Brexit. If you want to really grow the economy, you need to rejoin the single market and eventually the European Union. But nobody wants to talk about that. Labour don't want to talk about it, and the Conservatives certainly don't want to talk about it. The only person who has mentioned it within the Conservative Party is Tobias Ellwood. But the former Chancellor and probable Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, should be talking about rejoining the single market. Face down the Brexiteers. I know he's a Brexiteer, and I believe he was on the side of the disaster capitalist aspect of Brexit. But if you want growth, if you want to get out of this disaster, then you need to rejoin the single market. Because the pandemic is, as she said here, it's in the rear-view mirror. It's still having its impact, yes, but it's much more limited now. If you want investment, you need to change what's happening. You need to shake things up. You need to show that you're open, not closed. What's the point in investing in a country that is putting up barriers to trade? Makes no sense whatsoever. Investment since 2016 has declined. Why has that happened? Because the UK is the only country in the world, it seems, apart from maybe North Korea, which has put up trade barriers with its neighbours. Those have to come down. If they come down, then you're going to see investment. Then you're going to see growth. Otherwise, you're going to see more and more austerity. a declining economy, a contracting state, and more suffering. But both parties at the moment seem inclined to ignore this elephant in the room, to avoid talking about Brexit at all costs. It's a political decision, it's not an economic one. There's no economic argument for staying outside the single market. It's only political. And a small section of society seem to be pandered to in order to maintain that facade. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.